It is Monday, 28th day of April 2025. Welcome to the Lord Aboga TV newspaper review. Straight away we go onto the Standard, whereby the main headline is UDA's tax evasion. And we can see there is a picture of President William Samoei Ruto and a picture of former UDA Secretary General Cleophas Malala. Now, just for brief highlights, in the financial year 2022-2023, UDA received 345,800,496 Kenya shillings from the exchequer. And in the year 2023-2024 financial year, UDA received 576,872,461. This is quite some good amount of money. And it is believed that according to Cleophas Malala's expose, that the ruling political party, that is the UDA, they don't remit taxes. They are in a serious tax evasion role. So that is something that we shouldn't be hearing from a ruling party, because we expect the ruling party to serve as an example and to encourage other Kenyans to pay taxes. But there are always instances, and this happens in many parastatals, whereby taxes, something like house levy, pay, NHIF, NSSF, are deducted from Kenyans' salary. But at the end of the day, they don't remit that money to where it's supposed to be remitted. Standard, this is what Standard had to write about UDA's tax evasion. Among the issues that continue to draw criticism of President Ruto's administration, the burden of taxes stands out. Therefore, it comes as a great surprise when a former high-ranking official from the president's party revealed that the party is involved in tax evasion, including non-payment of housing levy, and failed to remit payee taxes. Last year, these tax issues sparked protests by Gen Z, to which the government responded with excessive brutality. Is the country being governed by two sets of rulers, reminiscent of George Orwell's famous move, where some animals are more equal than others? That is a sad state of affairs. As we can see, President William Samoei Ruto always keeps on saying, housing, housing, housing. And the very housing levy, his political party deducts their staff, the housing levy, but just some few quarters here and there, they end up pocketing that money. And don't tell me that the president is not aware of that, because tax evasion to those huge amounts must be notified to the president by KRA. Now, you cannot tell me that all these games and these tax evasions are going on from the ruling party, that is president's party, and the president is not aware of it. He must be aware. And it is high time we call the president to order, because such things cannot be happening at the full glare of his eyes. I come back to a quote that I always use many a times on this platform. If an alligator comes out of water and tells you that the crocodile is sick, will you believe it? To me, I'll believe it, because Senator Cleophas Malala was at the helm of UDA political party. Now, when he comes to tell us that they were not remitting taxes, I don't have any option but just to believe what Senator Cleophas Malala is saying. UDA mulipe ushuru. Kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea. And I think their KRA has in one or another slept on their job, because they are supposed to make such things public, that the ruling party is evading taxes. Rais William Samoei Ruto, you always keep on telling us again and again how housing levy and how these houses you are building are important to the people of Kenya. Why are your people not remitting housing levy to the tax collector? If you're indeed coming with clean hands with the housing levy, why are they not remitting taxes after deducting them from the rightful owners, rightful Kenyans who work for your party? That is a sad state of affairs, and it should not be happening on a ruling party. We don't have much on the Standard. Quickly we move on to the Daily Nation, whereby the main headline is Kenya shillings 5 billion a day debt, stress for Ruto. Now President William Samoei Ruto is expected to be paying Kenya shillings 5 billion each and every day for the financial year 2025-2026, because most of our debts are maturing this year. That is a serious burden, because this year we are supposed to pay a total of 1.8 trillion Kenya shillings to our debtors. And the Daily Nation here has written, Kenya this year will pay 1.8 trillion Kenya shillings, over half of country's budget, to its creditors, highlighting the governing burden of debt that has spiraled to Kenya shillings 11 trillion. With debt maturing, a public hostile to new taxes, and a looming International Monetary Fund program, President William Samoei Ruto walks an economic tightrope that could define his presidency. Now we have a debt of Kenya shillings 11 trillion, and this year alone we are expected to pay 1.8 trillion shillings. Now this begs, again comes to the question, whereby an economist, Bwana Ndindi Nyoro, said, government's assets are not just there for viewing. They are there to sustain the government's economy. Why can't we offset some of these assets?
Government assets exist to make money for the government. They do not exist as jewels. Zile assets ambazo serikali iko nazo, zingine hata hakuna fedha iliwekwa hapo. Kwa sababu tukiendelea na mwenendo wa kukopa sana, wale watabeba mzigo ni wale wanakuja hapo beleni. Na pia wale wako watakuwa na threat ya kwamba tukiweka mzigo ambayo italeta shida, ya kwamba hata Kenya haiwezi lipa hiyo kodi. The effects are catastrophic. Na kwa hivyo ni vizuri we manage and prudently aim in managing public resources in a manner that we are not borrowing beyond our limits.
For example, Ndindi Nyoro said we have a good number of shares with Safaricom. Why can't the government sell these shares so that in one or another it can relieve the burden of debt to the people of Kenya? Because the direction that President William Samoei Ruto can take is to heighten taxes na kuongeza ushuru kwa Kenya. Saa hii the 2024 Gen Z protests will automatically reoccur if they try to fix anything like increase of budgets. The Gen Z protests will occur. This time they might occur in a very serious manner. As you can see there, the Nation has highlighted that President Mwai Kibaki left a debt of 1.9 trillion Kenya shillings, and on President Uhuru Kenyatta's leadership is whereby things skyrocketed, whereby we went to a debt of 8.6 trillion Kenya shillings. Now President William Samoei Ruto is at 11 trillion Kenya shillings. That is sad state of affairs, and I don't know how President William Samoei Ruto is going to tackle this. But just as Ndindi Nyoro advised, let us offset some of government investments so that they can help us in one or another to settle these debts. Again, onto the Daily Nation, school reopened today as head teachers demand fund to avert unrest. Now you see the first term in the school's calendar is over. Now we are getting into the second term of the school's calendar. It is very unfortunate that the finance minister stood up and said that they had remitted all the monies belonging to term 1 schools and the general education system, whereby that statement was completely false. Because they didn't remit all the amount to the schools. They only remitted something close to 50% of the total amount that they were supposed to remit. First time I can tell you, me as a person who always interact with education system stakeholders, schools have really struggled because the government didn't remit the capitation amounts of money in full during the first term and the academic year 2025. That is very wrong. And you see, this second term is always a very long term in a manner. In one or another, it is just the longest term, unlike the other two. These where schools have too many curriculum activities. Schools have these things like conferences, the exchange programs from schools, whereby all these initiatives must be conducted and facilitated by money. Now, please, the finance minister, release school capitation monies on time. Because if you don't, it will bring just unnecessary unrest in schools. Because when you don't release money, how do you expect these students to survive? How do you expect these teachers to survive? How do you expect learners to learn? Because it is out of this money that books are bought, chalks are provided, other writing materials are provided to the schools. But when you don't release these capitation monies, how do you expect these institutions to run? It is so unfortunate. Bwana Mbadi, this time round, do something on time. I think that is what we have for today and to our newspaper review. This is the Lord Aboga TV. Remember to subscribe onto our YouTube channel at Lord Aboga TV. Press the notification bell so that when we come up with this important and interesting political content, YouTube will automatically notify you. That is up for now. Goodbye